All right, guys, I'm recording. So welcome to the Fit Boss Nation team call. Today is June 28th. Yes, 28th, 2016. We have a very, very, very special guest tonight. Her name is Pierra. I'm going to mess it up. Caiozzo?
You didn't mess it up. That was great.
See, the Italian. Okay. So just so you guys know, I know some of my personally sponsored coaches have heard me been like raving about her for the last week or so. I was introduced to Pierra by a very good friend of mine. You guys obviously know our big thing that we do in Beachbody coaching. One of the major things and one of the vital behaviors is personal development, right? And I eat it up with a spoon, and any way I can make myself better, whether it's through books or through audio or Reiki healing or finding Pierra, I am all in for it, right? So I'm going to totally butcher what she does, but she can further explain it to you. I only met her literally, I think, last week, not even a week ago. Okay. So we had a session. I was totally blown away by what she does and how well it has helped me just in the couple of days that I have been practicing some of the things that she asked me to do. So without further ado, today we have Pierra on. She is what they call a facilitator of the paradox process. And with that, that's all I know. But I want you guys to understand that the one thing that she told me at the beginning of our call, and I'll never forget this, she goes, "Do you know that you can have everything you want?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." But no, do you know that? Do you know that? And I was like, "I do," but it kind of like sat with me for a little bit because I'm like, we can have everything we want. And being the philosophy major that I was, like, I truly believe that this world is out there for our taking. And that's why I think I clicked so much with Pierra, because that's her philosophy. And that's where she starts, that you can have everything you want if you're willing to do the work. Okay. So with that, Pierra, take it away.
Okay. So my name is Pierra, and like Angela just mentioned, I am a facilitator of a process called the paradox process. And what that really is really kind of like psychotherapy, but completely different in regards to how we handle our clients. So normally with psychotherapy, you'll go in, you'll talk about your problems, and psychotherapists will talk about where you got lost or what happened in your life or all of those types of things. What we do is we know your story, we'll hear your story, but we want to know how we can get you out of your own way in order to move past all of the issues that you've had or have in order to start building and creating everything that you want. Okay. So how do I do that? Well, I often refer to each and every one of us as a walking receptacle, if you will. It's almost like we walk around and inside of us is this big trash can, and in it goes our stories, all the negative things that have happened to us, all the shitty things that have happened to us. And we get so inundated and filled up to the brim, if you will, we don't know how to empty it out in order to start seeing clearly and having a different perspective or doing things differently than we normally would do in order to start getting what we want. Oftentimes people think that their reality is fixed. They think that this is my life. What am I going to do? These are my circumstances. What am I going to do? And they don't realize or even know how to get out of their own way in order to start changing that reality. But we absolutely have that power. This process is really based in the theory of quantum physics, and not many people know what that is. So I'm just going to give you a little tidbit of what that is. And quantum physics is really the theory that the observer, you, I, anybody else, creates their reality. And that within us, there lives a million different potentialities and a million different versions of who we can be, who can show up to the party, if you will. And unfortunately, because life has a way of really weighing us down by our story, which is usually negative, what happens is we only have one person show up to the party. And the same person who shows up, the same person that you always bring up to the party, is picking the same choices that you've always chose. So what I'm saying is, if there's a million different versions of you or I or Angela or whomever, right? Let's bring somebody else forth. And how do we do that? So typically with what I do with my first-time clients in our first sessions is talk about how we can change in order to bring a different version forth. And so the first homework assignment that I give every one of my clients, and you guys have the luxury of getting this now, if you're not my first time clients, but you're getting a little tidbit on what we can do to really change our reality, is by doing opposites. So what's an opposite? An opposite is anything different than you're normally used to doing. So I had told Angela in our first session, it could be as little as if you wear makeup one day, don't wear makeup one day. If you take a different route to work, go a different way. If you answer somebody, I often use this because I laugh. I'm the type of person that if I get into an argument with my husband, I don't know if any of you can relate, I'll flip out on him. But I know now, having learned this process, that if I want to get what I want from him, if I handle him in a completely different way than I normally would handle him, which is flipping out, he reacts differently because he's forced to. So therefore, the control that I thought I was having by yelling and screaming and doing whatever and emoting wasn't getting me what I wanted. But if I changed me, I changed the world around me. So it's actually quite empowering because I'm taking the power back from yelling specifically. It could be anything really, but I'm taking the power back in order to get exactly what I want. So if we start doing opposites, we're really chipping away at our old patterns, our old behaviors, and really calling forth new versions of ourselves, because there's a million different versions that live within us. And by calling different versions forth, we start to create a different reality. So that's really just the tip of the iceberg of what we teach in this specific process in order to start gaining what we want. You'll start seeing by doing opposites, you're going to slowly but surely just see different things change around you. And in tandem with that, not only that, I don't know if any of you believe in what we show the universe conspires then to meet us more than halfway. So if I'm showing the universe, look, I'm doing something different than I normally would do, what happens is you're going to start seeing things that are almost going to seem ironic initially, but you're going to start seeing things change that normally have never changed for you before. And it really has to do with what I said at the top, which is the observer creates their reality. So I'm really in line with showing the universe what you're doing in order to create what you want. That's pretty much the spiel. That's pretty much the tip of the iceberg. If you have any questions, obviously, I'll love to answer anything.
So I love what you said, you know, when we had our first, like when we had our initial call, not our session, but about, you know, just that people are stuck in themselves. And I think a lot of people on this call, what we do, you know, putting ourselves out there, and we have, you know, just so you know, Pierra, like I told you, we do a lot of social media.
Yes.
We're always on social media, and you know, there's so much negativity sometimes, and there's backlash from your parents and your peers and your friends, and what are you doing? And, oh, you're putting yourself out there. Why are you telling your story? You know, how do we, you know, handle, I guess, that negativity, you know?
Negativity from the world around us, or putting us down, or making us believe that we're not worth it, or whatever we're doing is not worth it.
Exactly.
Well, basically it really ties in. It's in other words, I don't know if you've ever heard of the saying, having more haters is almost a good thing as opposed to a bad thing.
Yes.
It's kind of along the same lines. If you have haters, you know, in the back of your head, you must be doing something right. Because unfortunately, people are so driven by their early patterns that really stem from childhood and the way our parents raised us that affected us in a certain way. It's everybody's story. Our parents definitely affected us in ways that spawn different behaviors or different awarenesses that we might feel guilty of or ashamed of, or pick any emotion that can show up. And so when you have people who are backlashing against you or not caring about your story or even want to hear your story, know first and foremost that those people probably are what you are to them are direct reflections of what they're not. And unfortunately, you have to just push through that and realize that what you're producing is only going to produce more of the same, which is positivity. And the negative people are inevitably going to fall by the wayside or get on board, which is the hope.
Right. Yes, very much so. The hope.
Right.
I have like so many questions, but I'm sure Angie has a question. Yes, Angie. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think this is fascinating. I think that for me, and for where I'm going today with the team that I'm creating, you know, it's always going to be a question of how can I tear down those barriers? How can I break through those negative beliefs and like snap myself out of it? Like, what are some tips and tools of just kind of like moving through something to start practicing, to just kind of have that awareness? I mean, you know, I think what you'll start to learn. And I think when people, you know, that are kind of outside of other modalities and they come in to work with Beachbody coaches, what I think is most impressive is that a lot of us are doing personal development. So our mindset is obviously shifting and changing. And so now there's this kind of, this anxiousness to then break through those last little bits so that we can truly soar and truly kind of go through our obstacles. Because I know what ends up happening is that, you know, we can push through our barriers quicker, but we don't even want to get to the barriers anymore.
Right. Well, here's what I do want everybody to know is that we've entered this specific plane called planet Earth because we're here to learn our lessons, right? And so when we come up against challenges, often you're like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't even want this, like, i.e. the barriers that you're talking about. But that might be where your specific sets of lessons come in to play. And how you handle them is really how you're going to get through that lesson. Because if you don't get through that lesson, then what happens is we have to keep drudging through this lesson, if you will. So when you talk to me about, you know, facing barriers, can you give me specifics? So are you talking about getting people on board?
I mean,
what specifically, give me a for instance specifically.
So for me, specifically for me, it's self-sabotaging behavior, right? So it's like, how can I be an example and a model for what I'm trying to create if I'm like kind of backsliding into behaviors that aren't in line with our vital behavior.
I understand. Okay, so for instance, and this is really, let me preface it by saying that in growth, the biggest of growths, sometimes you take 10 steps forward and 15 back. So sometimes when you or anybody else feels like you are almost a fraud, if you will, a lot of people walk around.
I use that word a lot. Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of people do. You know, there are 6 specific, especially in this process that we often refer to, things that people believe about themselves in the world, right? So one is they have a fear of death. One is fear of not being liked, fear of being a fraud, fear of being not accepted. There's a few of them, okay? So just carry that around with yourself, that might just be your pattern, if you will, okay, for the sake of patterns. But you also have to know in tandem with that your growth is not going to just shoot right from the bottom to the top, that you're always going to take 5 steps forward and maybe 10 back, because that's where you live in your growth. It's almost like when your back's against the wall, the only way is up, right? So to keep that in the back of your mind and to be real with people really accept real. If they know that you're giving them shit, they're going to smell it from a mile away. So being a real person and say, you know what? Yes, there are people who can make it, but sometimes you have to take a few steps back in order to shoot that much further forward. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And being real with them, because, you know, sometimes people will even look at who are really preaching about something that we're very passionate about. And I can say, sitting here before all of you, that I have days where I'm like, shit, but I also know how to get myself out of it. And I also know that if I show the universe what I'm doing to try to change, even on my worst days, that something else will show up for me in a positive way. Because it's almost like the theory of, and I'm not religious by any means, but God helps those who help themselves. Call your God whatever it will, or whomever he is or it is. But the fact is that if you show that you're working, it's going to come back tenfold, even 20-fold. And as long as the people that you're addressing know that, listen, not every day is sunny. Right. But in order for the flowers to grow, it needs to rain sometimes. That's right there, the biggest respect you can gain. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Thank you. That's great.
Anytime.
That's great. If anybody else has a question, can you just type it in the chat? Because I have quite a few people on the call and can't see you all. Diana, question? Go ahead, Di.
You're still on your call? I want another.
Diana, you have a question?
Oh, am I unmuted?
No, yeah.
Oh no, I don't even know where to begin. You sound amazing, and everything that you actually said, I just kept saying, oh my God, yes. And again, I am not a personal development person. I don't believe in, not that I don't believe in God, but I'm not a holy person.
Yes.
I do believe in a God, but I've
Higher
noticed
power.
that higher power, whatever it is,
Yes.
it's going to hopefully lead me in the right direction.
Right.
I 1,000% what you said that, about your husband. I think he's my number one hater, even though I think he loves me so much, but he lives a very private life.
Right.
When you said that instead of exploding on him with, let's say, just an argument, and you handle it in a different way, you get what you want.
Yes.
And it's like you manipulate yourself into something, not fake it. You're not faking it, but you're just changing the way you would have acted to get something out in the situation. And that's how I feel like I have to do with everyone and everything in my life.
Do you do it?
I try, but then I'm like, but am I being fake?
No.
Because I am that explosive person. I am that passionate, like, this is how I want it.
What are you doing?
Yes. Yeah. But,
I know.
I kind of like, but wait, this is not me. But
right.
it is me. I'm trying to grow. So I'm kind of torn as well.
So here's what I want to say in regards to that, because I completely relate to you 100%. 100%.
Diana, I'm going to mute you for 1 second.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
We are 100% passionate people, right? I know I am. And sitting across from you, I can see it in your eyes, the fire that you have, okay? I completely relate to it. And I know, oftentimes when passionate people like you or I want to blow onto the scene, we have something to say. We want the world to listen. But sometimes people are too busy in their own headspace, in their own life to even pay attention, right? Sometimes they say, and I don't know if you've ever read this or heard this, but if you want to speak to somebody, normally if people use a loud voice, they don't get as much of a response as when they talk quietly. Because there's more power in stillness than there is in emoting everywhere. Even though it feels good, right? It feels good for me anyway. But that being said, choosing to do something completely different or answer your husband in a completely different way, though you might think you are faking it, we often have it's a cute little saying in this process, but it's called fake it to make it. Or ordinarily, it feels fake to you because it's not the version of you that you normally bring to the party, right? So if I show up to the party and I'm this meek, quiet girl who's very different than I normally am, it almost feels unnatural. And I often compare it to going to the gym, right? First few times you go to the gym and you're doing sets, you're like, holy shit, I'm in pain. Next time you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. Third time you're like, oh, give me some more weight. Fourth time it's a breeze, right? It's kind of the same premise even with your mind and your psyche, right? You'll literally want to flip out. But if you choose a different option just to choose a different option, what happens is you start getting comfortable with the new version of you that's showing up, therefore making it more comfortable like the gym. Do you understand? Okay, cool. I know I have kids. I understand. My kids do this to me sometimes.
I have one behind me. I hope she's sleeping now. Oh my God, I can't. So Pierra, the other day, it was funny, you guys, my personally sponsored coaches and Angie, my coach, know that like I live in my parents' basement, right? And my father and my mother are constantly like in my ear. And I literally texted Pierra that I was like, my father's home and he's being negative. What do I do? She's like, answer him completely differently. Right. So the other day it was raining yesterday and he, it's just like little things, right? I went to go walk the dog and he's like, it's raining, you're going to get wet. And normally, like, I'm not kidding. This is what he said to me. And I normally would be like, yeah, duh. Like, I know I'm going to get wet. Like, what do you,
right.
Like, hold on. My husband is trying to call me and I'm trying to decline his call. And instead I was like, I know. Do you want to walk the dog for me then? Which like literally like in here is so not me. Cause usually it would be like, yeah, it's fucking raining. Of course. Like, but I still have to walk the dog. Like what, And he was like, huh? And it's just funny how like and it was so unnatural. I was just like, oh, yeah, no. You want to walk the dog for me? And he's like,
right.
Wait, what? He's like, nope.
Exactly. You know, oftentimes when we're in this process and we're forever ongoing, it's a learning experience every day, right? Of what we really could create. And oftentimes people don't believe that if they change their way of thinking and doing things, that they're actually forcing the other person to change by default. And so it's kind of cool when you're doing that. It does feel unnatural, but what the reward is that you're actually getting a different response than you normally would get. And in turn, starting to shift other people without you really having to do much.
Right.
Very, very fascinating. And the more people start to do that, play with those opposites and play with doing things differently than you totally would do it, you start to see little things change around you and start calling forth behaviors that you actually want to call forth without even doing really much of anything other than changing you, you know?
Right.
It's very interesting.
I'm like fascinated by it. So can you just to wrap it up, or if anybody has any other questions, just type them. But I guess just explain what that first session is like and what the actual like process is, you know?
Okay.
I thought that was like,
how many people are on this call?
I think 18 or 20.
18 to 20. Okay, so let me explain a little bit further in depth what I do and what every other facilitator at this process does. Not only do we, up top, I had mentioned that it's almost as if we're receptacles, and in it goes all this garbage, all this negative talk, all of these fears, all of these beliefs that aren't necessarily true, right? So if a client comes to me and sits across from me, we're going to talk about the situation. We're going to talk about what's holding you back from creating what you want. And in the very end of our conversation, we do something called clearing. It's an exercise. What the exercise is, and I don't know, Angela, I maybe can do something generic if I were to do an exercise, if everybody would close their eyes once I'm ready to start.
Sure.
Let me just get a little bit more information so I know where I'm going with the clearing.
Okay.
What would you say would be most everybody on this call's issue with creating what they want?
Ooh.
Give me something as general as you could possibly give that everybody could maybe relate to.
I'm going to unmute Angie because I know she has a lot to say about this, but I think it's the lack of belief in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of belief in themselves?
In themselves and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Tell
I agree.
Exactly what you're doing on a given day.
Yeah. So just, putting ourselves out there, sharing their story about their weight loss journey, their transformations, being, a lack of belief that they even have a story to tell or that their story is important to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think it stems from, it's a lack of belief, and then it trickles down into when you don't believe in yourself, then you're not posting, you're not telling a story, you're not inviting people to join our, what we call challenge groups, right? So every month we run challenge groups where we start people on a fitness, program and stuff like that and coach them through it. It trickles down. So I think the crux of it, the core of it is lack of belief in themselves and that they are important or important enough and
relevant in the world.
Relevant in the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why don't we do this exercise? Okay. If anybody at any given moment while I'm explaining what I'm about to do, because I normally don't do this for a group of 20, but I'm going to see how it goes. Okay. This is what the crux of the paradox process is, right? So we're back to this trash can. We're filled with all these beliefs or disbeliefs or fears or anxieties or worries, right? So we're filled to the top, but who's emptying the trash, right? So we walk around to capacity with all of this nonsense story that we tell each other and tell ourselves on a daily basis that really keeps us from going further, from growing, from really creating from a different headspace because there's not enough room for clarity. So as a teacher of this process, what I do with my clients, and I'm going to try to do tonight with this group, is to literally take out the trash. Nobody's ever done that for you, right? Nobody has ever walked around and had somebody feel them energetically enough to take away that story that we walk around with, okay? That being said, what the exercise is I sit across from all of you, one of you, whomever, and we do a little exercise. I'm going to do it with Angela, just so you guys can get an idea of what it is that I need you to say in your head when we move forward. Is that okay, Angela?
Yeah, absolutely.
Clearing. We call this clearing, okay? So let me start with Angela, and I'm going to show you guys, if you will, what it is that I do. Okay, ready? I'm only going to do a couple of inputs of those rhetorical questions.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm about to do with Angela is I'm going to throw her rhetorical questions based on this fear of not being enough, this fear that each and every one of you might potentially walk around with. I'm going to throw inputs at her. They're going to sound like rhetorical questions. They're not meant to be answered. All they're meant to do is clear out that trash, if you will, and leave some room for clarity, perspective, different than you normally would have. Okay?
Yep.
I'm only going to do a couple of inputs so they know where I'm going, and then I'm going to do it with the whole group.
Okay.
And they're going to follow along in their head. So Angela, after each input that I give you, I want you to say feeling clear, to clear the feeling. So by saying feeling clear in your head when we all start, that's literally going to almost take that feeling that you walk around with and throw it out. And I would like some input when I'm done to see what that did to any given person, whoever wants to volunteer. Okay?
Perfect.
Ready, Angela? And,
Yep.
and we're going to do a couple, and then I'm going to do a bunch with everybody. Okay? Don't I feel like a failure?
Feeling clear.
Don't I feel like I'm trying so hard and I'm not getting anywhere?
Feeling clear.
Don't I feel like I'm doing this all for nothing?
Feeling clear.
Don't I feel stupid?
Feeling clear.
Don't I feel like I have no business even doing this?
Feeling clear.
Okay, so that's a little bit of what it's going to sound like. So I'm literally reading into each and every one of you because we all walk around even with a generic version of a bad story about ourselves, right? We all don't believe that we're anything spectacular, when in fact, we really are. Imagine if all of us walked around believing we were spectacular, what we could do. That would be amazing, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do this for everybody. If you all want to close your eyes just to focus in your head after each of those rhetorical inputs, also known as rhetorical questions or inputs, just say feeling clear to yourself. And then when I'm done, we'll check in and see where you guys are going. Okay? Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Why do I suck? Why do I feel like I'm doing this and it's not getting me anywhere? Didn't I feel like I was strong in the beginning and weak now? Don't I feel like people look at me like I'm stupid? Why do I feel like I'm doing this and I'm not getting anywhere? What if I could see myself as the perfect being that I want to be in the world? What if I could see that I'm fabulous? Isn't it true that I feel like the world looks at me like I'm stupid? Isn't it true that I feel like I'm not enough out there? Isn't it true that I feel like everybody looks at me like I'm a know-it-all when really I don't know anything? What if they're all wrong? What if I do know everything? What if I have enough information within me to sell everybody what they need to know? When am I going to see that I'm a powerhouse? When am I going to see that this road has led me to this path and this is what I'm meant to do? When am I going to trust myself? When am I going to love myself enough to show the world what I'm capable of? Why does the world make me feel different? Why does the world make me feel like I'm absolutely wrong? What if they're wrong? What if I'm showing up to this party fabulous and everybody's just scared? What if I could see everybody as just afraid? What if I don't have to be that scared little girl anymore? What if I can show up and really dazzle people the way they need to be dazzled? What if I could see them as them being scared and me being the nurturer? When am I going to be able to not only take care of me, but take care of them? Can I see the ability that I have to do that? Can I see that people will love me for it and honor me for it and not be so afraid? What if I could see them all as being scared? Can I approach them differently? Can I give them a little bit of hope? Can I give them hope when I don't have the hope? Can I see that I'm fearless? And even if I don't feel that way on certain days, I'm absolutely capable, willing, and knowledgeable in my field. When am I going to trust that I'm enough? When am I going to see that there's nothing to be scared of? When am I going to see that fear is the light that lights everybody's path and we're all in this together? When am I going to see that I've been put here to be a guide and that's exactly what I'm going to do? Can I see that I'm unstoppable? So that's a little bit of the clearings that we do. Granted, I'm trying to gear it and focus in on what you guys do specifically. But let's say it's any aspect of your life. Let's say a client comes to me with a different set of circumstances and a different set of beliefs about themselves or fears or anxieties. We would hone specifically in on what it is that is holding you back. But I do want some feedback on what that might have done to some people. I want to see how that worked.
Guys, just if you want to comment, just unmute yourself. You can do it.
I unmuted myself. Hi, everybody. It's Angie again. Oh my God, chills from top to bottom.
It's crazy, right?
It's if really truly, because you don't like, I think we try to do it all ourselves, like with our personal development and with, like, for me, I do go to church and I believe in that. And I talk to my coaches, but like to really truly uncover and clear out the stuff that's inside of me, like that practice is completely not happening. Really. Right. Like I can talk myself out of just so much.
Sure. And
right?
we all do. You know what it is? It's that we're afraid. You know, what I said in one of the inputs was, can I see that fear is the light that lights everybody's path? Mm-hmm. So, you know, for the people that are almost skeptical to join or to get on board, it's their fear about whatever set of circumstances they're afraid of, just the way it's your fear to get them there because you might not believe in yourself, right? So we all have sets of fears, but we can't take them personally because that's their set of issues versus your set of issues. Mm-hmm. But if you can walk around with that clarity, I don't know if any of you have a sensation of feeling lighter, of feeling clearer about a circumstance. Mm-hmm. Once you have that, and once you continue with that work, let's say, you really start believing a different set of ideas. We're so used to believing the set of ideas that we have that we get stuck. We hit a roadblock. And what happens is we're only one note, when really we're 100 million different notes. And the other notes want to be played, if you will, if I can use that analogy. You don't always have to show up a specific way. And what ties in with the opposites is believing that, having a belief and knowing that there's a million different potentialities of you or I, million different versions of you that can show up and be different at any given moment. If I called on, if I was like, hey, can you be vulnerable? Hey, can you be a bitch? Hey, can you be sweet and kind? There's a million different people who could show up to that party, but we always choose the one that we think is keeping us safe or not going to get hurt. I'm saying let's throw that away. Let's jump into the deep end and realize you're going to be able to swim. So many people think they're going to drown and they get afraid, hence the fear lighting their path, and then we get stuck. So I'm saying, yeah, we're all afraid. We're all afraid. You're not alone. There's not a single person in the world that isn't broken in one way or another. It's which broke are you? But I'm saying, okay, let's know that we're broke and let's just do something about it to mend it enough to get what we want. And the world, unfortunately, and this is what we talk about in the process very often, is that the world is consciously asleep. We're all asleep. So many people walk around in their story of who they're not, of who they want to be, of what they need, or what they didn't get, or how their parents screwed them up, or how their husband fucked them over. I can give you a million different stories that people walk around with. And I'm saying, yes, we all have one. But what are we going to do to offset that? And so many people are asleep in that story that they physically cannot wake themselves up. But when we start to clear, which is what we do in this process, we literally start making room for that. You start to wake up. It's almost like, have you ever heard of the saying, once you see something, you can't unsee it ever again? Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same premise. Once you start getting clear, you're seeing things the way you should see them, as opposed to the skewed version that has really damaged us growing up. Yes. You know? And that people all want to just be taken care of emotionally. Mm-hmm. And if we can walk around knowing that, and almost, if you will, like for me, with my clients, I need to take care of my clients emotionally, because people need to know that they're loved and need to know that they're not alone and need to know that they are safe. And once they know that, I think that they're ripe for the picking, if you will. and not in a negative way, in the best possible way. It's almost like you're saving them by showing them how to save themselves. And that's what I do. So I hope that that clearing helped a little. You know, I normally don't do it on a large scale. I did it very generically. Of course, with specific clients, I hone in on the specific feeling we walk around with. So I hope that that gave you guys a little bit more insight than you normally would have.
I mean, Pierra, I'll tell you, like,
Guys.
oh, who was that?
I heard something, but I don't hear anything anymore.
I know. I mean, Pierra, obviously, I've done this with you once before, and I have that feeling, like you said, of this lightness.
Right.
And the only way that I can explain it is that when we did our clearing, it was, you said all the things that were in my head, right? So that this constant battle in my head every single day of all the things you said, like, I'm not good enough, people, you know, what am I doing? All these different things. It's the stuff that you don't say out loud. Right. It's the stuff that you don't normally look in the mirror and tell yourself, like, I suck. Right. But it's like in here and it gets stuck in your soul.
Yep.
And I think actually, and I don't understand the quantum physics of it or whatever, but I think actually having it said out loud makes you realize, like, wow, am I really talking about myself that way? And it, you know, it resonates because you know you are, you feel it in your soul, but wow, do I really believe this stuff? Like, saying it out loud just makes it so real. And you're just like, oh, that's
well, I will tell you this. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the theory of ego, super id, all of those, right? We walk around with this ego, and our ego is not our friend. Our ego is actually our nemesis. Our ego wants to keep us so safe in the world that it doesn't allow us to really do or want us to do anything outside of what we typically are normally used to doing, right? So oftentimes in this process, we talk about our authentic self versus our ego. So now our authentic self is really, if you have children, which I know most of you or some of you do, you look at them when they're young and you look at them in their innocence. They can do anything. They can be anybody. They're carefree. They're out there. They're just a bundle of fresh air, right? That's who we are when we are in our authentic self. But what happens is life happens. We become jaded. We get a couple of kicks in the ass along the way, right? And so then we develop this ego, which is this, nobody's going to hurt me. I'm going to keep this safe. I'm going to keep my heart safe and no one's going to infiltrate me. I'm going to keep myself so safe that you keep yourself so safe that you're actually unsafe in the world, if that makes sense. It's almost like your ego keeps you so locked up that there's no room for you to be as free and carefree as you were when you were young, right? So again, in this process, what we try to do with clearing is get people back as close as we can to who they are who they were when they were younger. Carefree, not worrying so much. Don't worry. It's almost like believe that you're going to land on your feet. Believe that the level of confidence that those little kids that we can look at have is the level of confidence is what's going to sell you left and right in any capacity, right? Oftentimes some of my clients will be like, you seem so confident. I am confident because I know what I'm creating in the world. And I know that even if it didn't work, some part of it will work. And that's all I care about, is knowing that some part of my confidence is going to work in my behaviors and what I do differently in the world as opposed to what I do when I was same note, when I was the same version of myself that always showed up that wasn't working prior to this process. So it's ego versus your authentic self. Every time I often joke with other clients when I say, that's just your ego talking. That's just your ego trying to stop you. I say, recognize that. Almost like you're observing somebody differently and saying, oh, I'm doing what I always did again, and catch yourself right in your tracks and try to live differently in that moment. Do something different. That'll break away that pattern.
absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, Angela, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have time? Okay, so the question I have is, as we are doing work like this, right, whether we start working with you and even with the personal development, and how, like, when you're interacting with others, as much as we want to change behavior to then have a different outcome and a different reaction. Like when you're faced with the opposite, right? When you're faced with somebody who is not doing the work, and shifting and changing and growing and learning, and they're stuck in that ego space to keep themselves safe.
Right.
What do you do in that circumstance? And I ask this because it could be, for a lot of the women, it's their husbands. For a lot of us, it's our families, it's our parents, it's our siblings, and in some cases, their children or partners, whatever. Like, what happens at that point when we're doing all of this understanding, like and we're trying to shift that experience, but we're being faced with.
Well, that's what I was trying to say, is that
Okay.
when you typically, right? So if you had to give me a for instance, and you gave me a for instance on how things normally go, let's just say with you, it's your partner or your spouse or whomever it is that you deal with on a regular basis that might hold you back. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, yeah, something like that. Like, I'm thinking about what Diana said before, I'm thinking about Angela's parents. Like, I'm thinking about my sister. Like, I'm thinking it's like, it's
right. Okay. So in regards to the opposites, which is what I gave right at the top, when you are trying to change a circumstance, normally you're picking the same behavior that you normally do, right? So what I'm saying is, if you're faced with any type of adversity, if you start to change, even if it feels awkward, even if it feels, like Angela said, weird or fake or something totally against the grain of who she is or what she would even say, by doing that or by pushing into that, immediately the landscape has to change. So I gave you the for instance on my husband. Normally I'd rip him a new one if I had to. But I know now, if I need to get a different picture in front of me, if I paint a different picture within me and do something completely different than what I would do, he's going to have to show up different. So let me give you an example. If he's screaming at me, right? And I'm sitting there, and normally my intention would be to scream right back, because who are you to scream at me? That's going to give me the same of what I normally have gotten. So instead, if I now don't answer him, or if I walk out of the room, or if I kindly say, you know what, I'm not going to do this right now. You're upset? That's okay. Talk to me when you're okay. And I handle him completely differently than he's normally used to me handling him. He can't react. How is he going to react the same way? It's almost like if somebody's screaming at you and you don't even give them any play, they'd look like a complete moron continuing to scream, yes? So now you just change that person by changing you. It's the same premise with everything else. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're trying to get somebody on board, or you're trying to get somebody, handling them or giving whatever spiel you normally give something different. Throw something in there that's going to make them believe that this is something that they need to try or that they need to do. Pick something that's totally different than you normally would say, because just by default of being different, something different's going to show up in any way. Sometimes spiels get old. Sometimes saying the same old thing is boring for you. So by you feeling bored, they're picking up that energy. All we are is energy. If you or I didn't exist in flesh and bone, I can feel you energetically. Did you ever walk into a room and know you didn't like somebody immediately? They didn't even open their mouth. It's because you know energetically what you're feeling. Same premise.
Thank you.
No problem.
Amazing. Amazing. All right, guys, if there's no other comments or feedback or whatever, I just, Pierra, thank you so much. I wanted to get you on here like as quickly as possible because I love you. I've only known you for like 5 seconds, and I love you. You helped me so much in like 1 hour, more than anything I've ever read or listened to.
Right.
Just because, like I said, I really think we can listen to all this stuff. We can read all these books. We can do all this training.
Yeah.
But if you're not mentally there to accept it and then go do it and believe that you can, there's a major block. There's just a major block.
Absolutely. It all starts by just taking one step at a time. That's first and foremost, being true to who you are and realizing that we're all here having a human experience, but tweaking it a little here and there. And a lot of people don't know how to tweak it. So that's one example that I gave, which is opposites. To start. That's a start. And there's so many other tools that we have in this process to really get you going forward. And really, once you start waking up cognitively and really waking up to the reality of what we can do and what we can create, it's limitless and invaluable, because the world is yours. Take it, just take it. Most people don't believe they're allowed. You know, I also want to leave you with, and I think I spoke to you, Angela, about this, picking a word of the year. So do I have enough time to speak about this?
Yeah, you can go as long as you want.
Okay. So word of the year, we often, at the very beginning of the year, January 1st, you know, we all make resolutions. Well, within the process, we choose a word of the year. And the word of the year is something that challenges you. So for example, one of my words of the year was patience. I don't have much patience. Like I said, could flip on a dime, go crazy, yell, scream. That might be most of us. Some people don't. But there might be something that challenges you. And again, like I said, God helps those who help themselves, or whatever your God is. If we show the universe that we're trying to push into something that challenges us, we're actually taking initiative to change ourselves, therefore changing the landscape in front of us. So for the year, I chose to pick patience. So every day, if I wanted to yell, I wouldn't. If I wanted to curse out the guy who was driving alongside of me too slow, I refrained. I pushed into something that challenged me in order for me to change myself and then have something else show up. And usually, most times, it shows up in the best possible way. So for my instance, the following year, when I checked back with pushing into that specific word, I started building my practice, and it started building exponentially. So I have to believe that the universe said, okay, you're trying, you're doing something different. You're pushing into something that challenges you. So here, the universe tries to conspire to meet you more than halfway when it sees that you're trying. So I encourage everybody to pick a word that challenges them. You know, one of my clients doesn't trust anybody. So her word is trust. Just to believe, really believe. Like, even she'll have dates with men, and she's like, oh, they're all cheaters. Forget it. And I'm like, let's just play with the word. Push into it. Trust. Even if you think he's selling you a bill of goods, I want for you just to believe everything he's saying. Not that you're blowing smoke up your ass, just to practice trust, because she had none. And what shows up is beautiful. Things show up for you that you're going to be like, is this coincidence, or did I do this? And the more you see it, the more you see things showing up for yourself in the face of what you're doing to help change your reality, the more you're going to believe that it's not a coincidence, that it's actually you changing your reality.
Can I just add to that? Like, when I just, for, you know, we picked a word, and my word was also trust. And originally I had picked, and my team knows this, my word of the year I had picked in January was elevate, right? So like, take everything that I had done last year and just do it better. But Pierra, you pushed back on that, and you said, well, you could do that in your sleep. You can elevate anything you wanted in your sleep. That's not hard for you.
Yeah. Something that's hard.
So just so everybody understands, you've got to pick something that pushes you out of your comfort zone. So mine is trust, and mine a little different in trusting people. It's not that. It's more of trusting the process, trusting myself, trusting that I'm enough, trusting the people, you know, not the people around me, but just trusting really myself, that I have what I need, and trusting the process and not trying to force everything that I want to happen like now.
And that's another thing, if I can add to that too, is that oftentimes we live with an expectation. Like, oh, I expect this. I expect for this to happen. And that's kind of where we go wrong in life, is living with an expectation as opposed to an intention. So let me give you for instance. I intend to have a lot of money one day. I intend to have money that I'm never going to have to worry. I believe that, and don't even doubt it for a millisecond, because that's the picture I see in my head, and I know that that's the way it's going to go. And I will forever be okay financially. That's something that I live with intention. I don't expect it. I believe that it's just going to happen. Does everybody understand the difference between expectation and intention? It's almost like you live with the intention of, yes, this is absolutely the way it's going to go. Or in regards to what you guys do, living with the belief that, yeah, you're going to be, Angela, what did you say to me for a session in regard to tiers? Like, what level tiers do you guys have? Or
the diamonds and 1-star diamond and all that.
Right. If you can live with the belief of knowing, not even having an expectation, just seeing that and knowing that that is the way it's going to be. If you can walk around with that visualization and that intention, as opposed to the worry that it may not be, unless you do X, Y, and Z. Just hold that in your head and your heart, that that's the intent that you're going to create, and then live into that creation. That it's just literally a step away. Some people don't believe that, or they're like, oh, well, maybe I can't do that. What if we just don't even do that? What if we just instead play with our psyche and believe that it's already there? We just haven't arrived yet.
Amazing.
And really walk around with that.
Okay, so I have a really nuanced question.
Okay.
And this is, bear with me for a second. So
Sure.
remember how I was talking about how, like, I'm, you know, my husband's in Florida and I want to move, and the kids start school 8:22 and I got to get down there, right?
Yep.
What is your belief or in this process when people, because everyone asks every single day, when are you leaving? When are you moving? When are you going? And literally, I don't know, right? So do I answer with, I don't know? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm letting it go with the flow because I'm trusting the process, right? Or do I live with intention and say, I'm going in August?
Yep.
I'm
That's
putting
exactly
it out
what
there.
you do. Listen, whatever you speak into the universe hears you.
Okay.
So if you don't know, you'll forever not know. But even if you say to everybody, I'm moving in August, even if you don't, then in August we can revisit the next month or the next month.
Right.
But the fact that you're setting an intention for yourself, again, it's the same premise. You're speaking it into the universe hears you, it sees you, and it wants to match you.
So that's the feeling that I got when I keep telling everybody I'm not sure. I was like, well, no, I should say August so somebody hears me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm right about that.
You know, I'll give you a for instance. I really believe in what you show the universe, it's going to show up someplace else. So I'll give you a quick story. I had wanted to buy the house that's connected to my house. I live in Queens and we have houses that are attached. My neighbor passed away and her house went for sale and I wanted to purchase it. The house literally needed to be a complete gut renovation. They wanted such a high number for this house that really virtually needed to be knocked down, that I was not biting this. I was like, there is no way I'm paying for this house for the number that they're giving me. I wanted for $550 as opposed to $650. Okay. So my husband's like, how are we going to do this? They're not accepting the offer. I said, let's go look at other houses. He's like, what? We don't even want to buy another house. I said, that's not why I'm doing it. Why I'm doing this is because I'm showing the universe that I want something. I want a house. I want an investment property. Let's go look at other houses just because I'm showing the universe. And I know that it's going to show up where I need it. And that's exactly what I did. And you know what? I fell in love with something else. And on the day I was about to put the bid in for something else, the house that I wanted that was connected to me, they gave to me for $100,000 less than what I wanted it for. Why? Because I showed the universe I was trying. Because I showed the universe, this is what I want. I want an investment property. And though I want the one connected to me and I may not get it, which I really don't believe. I knew I was going to get it because I know how this works. I went and played with it. You know, this is the game called life. We could be in this game and just go along and go through the motions, or we're going to take it by storm. And I'm saying, shit, let's take it by storm. Let's not be so scared anymore. You know, tomorrow we could all be dead. And what's that going to do? We did nothing. Let's just face fear and jump in. Jump in the deep end and know that you're going to swim. Jump in the deep end and know that high risk is high reward. The more risk you take, the more you get. So I want to play. I want to be a big roller, as they call them in the gambling industry. And I'm going to face every challenge, and I encourage everybody to do this, to face every single challenge as if you're going to win, and just know that you're going to win. And watch what shows up. I dare you to tell me it doesn't. I really dare you, because I know completely otherwise. Because of what I do. And if I can share that with you, which I'm trying to do today, you can see how this would unfold the way you want it to unfold as opposed to not work out. I don't believe in not working out.
I love it. Mic drop. Okay. Amazing. I loved it. Love you. I love it. I love it. I hope everybody felt the connection to Pierra and then understood what she was trying to convey to us. And thank you so much for giving us your time and your insight and your wisdom, and doing that exercise with us. It was amazing.
Anytime.
So, Pierra, if you don't mind, I know that there's going to be 15 messages to me about getting your information.
Anybody, my phone number.
Your phone number. I'm going to post it on my team page, on Angie's team page, and I encourage everybody to at least at least talk to Pierra, do a session, do something, because it really, 5 days later, I feel like I'm getting to chip away at that type A Ange.
Yeah. And it's amazing what shows up.
It's amazing. I even wrote in black pen, guys, for the first time in like 25 years. Okay. If I can write in black pen, you guys can do anything. I'm serious. It's
That's
that bad.
Good. I like that. But literally things like that, even the smallest of things, writing in black as opposed to blue, is chipping away at the old version.
Oh my God.
And therefore forcing another person to show up.
It's somebody, I don't even know who it was, because I was like, oh my God.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Right.
But anyway, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Appreciate it. And have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you.
Anytime. See you later.
Bye bye.